Alright, let's just take a look at another old computer. This is an IBM Aptiva. This is identical looking to the first computer I ever owned back in 1995 when I was 10 years old. So I was really excited when about a year ago, I found this machine, and this is just, I struck out. This is a piece of tape, and it has some identifying marks that identifies the former owner, so I just censored that because you never know, right? Anyway, yeah, this was my first computer, not this exact specimen, because I actually at some point we trashed it because we didn't know better. But this, like the Aptiva range, is something that IBM did in '94. It was their home consumer multimedia PC for the home, and it replaced the PS1 range, which were low-end ISA machines, unlike the more expensive high-end PS2 machines that were being phased out at the time. But when IBM did these machines, they had totally abandoned, you know, all their proprietary stuff pretty much. So there's no MCA, there's none of the BIOS on disk or any of this weird PS2 stuff. This is just basically, this is IBM just giving up and making PC clones. This is like IBM becoming a clone manufacturer. So this has Visa Local Bus and ISA slots. It doesn't have VLB slots. It actually has only, like, the graphics are VLB, but it's integrated on the motherboard. It's not a slot. Anyway, yeah, this is a 486DX2 66 megahertz. It's got, or the stock configuration was 4 megs of RAM and a 540 meg hard drive. Now, mine was a DX4 100, and it came stock with 8 megs and also the 540 meg hard drive. Now, actually a funny thing about my machine was that it was a DX266, but they had kind of crossed it out at the factory, and it was it had an overdrive CPU from the factory, so it was actually factory upgraded to 100 megahertz. So yeah, anyway, this also, mine came with a CD-ROM. This is not the factory CD-ROM, I don't think. This is something that was added later, and it has the lovely MPC2 logo. Anyone remember MPC? I do. Yeah, and this is a 2-speed CD-ROM drive, and it also has the normal floppy. Mine had a 4X, which is a lot more useful. Trust me, you really notice the difference between 2 and 4. Anyway, let's just real quick take a look inside this thing. So here's the inside of the machine. I've done some upgrades since I received this machine. For some reason, IBM always used these stupid flathead screws in their machines up until later. These suck. They're pretty bad. Anyway, so I upgraded the machine with a network card, obviously, and no, I think the network card was in it already. But I did add the sound card, and this sound card is kind of a strange oddity. So this seems like it was a low-end configuration. It didn't have all the multimedia options. It didn't have the CD-ROM or the sound card stock, which mine did. Mine came with all the multimedia stuff, which was all the rage at the time. But yeah, I got a suitable sound card to install into this. This is just, you know, whatever card. It's just... And this is a weird card because my machine came stock with a Vibra 16, which is kind of the cost-reduced version of the Sound Blaster 16. And this is a Vibra 16. This is the genuine creative Vibra 16, but it's not actually made by Creative. This is made by a company called Media 40, and this is the Sound 40 sound card. And it comes with a bunch of CD-ROM interfaces, ID, Panasonic, Mitsumi, and Sony. But yeah, it's really weird because usually Creative doesn't license their chips to third-party manufacturers, but this time they did. So this is kind of a really good card actually. It's fully Sound Blaster compatible, obviously, but you can find these really cheap. Like, they're not that common, but when they do pop up, they're not worth a lot of money but you know, great DOS cards. Yeah, and I upgraded the RAM. Like here you can see, I think this has 16 megs now. I think this is like this is 8 probably, and then 4 and 4, so 16 megs. I think might even be 32 actually, 8, 16, yep. And this is a slot for VRAM upgrades. I think this only has 512K of VRAM for the Cirrus Logic GD5430 video chip on board. As I said, this is a Visa local bus actually, so this is quite fast. But it only has 512K, so it kind of limits the resolutions you're able to use. Mine had 1 meg, so it had this populated. I don't have a spare chip for that right now, but yeah. And over here you can sort of see the DX266 CPU with a heatsink on it. And then I added some cache memory that I had laying around. This has 128K of level 2 cache. Mine had 256, but you know. And that's an abrupt cut. Yes, it's me from the future. I had to go back and reshoot some stuff because it turns out the audio on this part was really bad. Yeah, anyway, the segue into the next segment is when I had one of these machines, it came from the factory with either OS2 Warp or PC-DOS 7 and Windows 3.1. And the way they implemented that was, if I recall correctly, the first time you booted the machine up after bringing it home, you could choose either OS2 Warp 3.0 or PC-DOS and Windows. And the one you didn't select was wiped from the hard drive. So of course, like, you know, this was in the days of Windows 95, like just when Windows 95 had started becoming a thing. But due to Microsoft's monopolistic tactics at the time, because they would never do anything like that today, of course, but they didn't allow IBM access to Windows 95 as early as all the other OEMs because, you know, Microsoft was trying to compete with Windows 95. They were pushing OS2 Warp hard as the successor to DOS and Windows, the true 32-bit multitasking successor. And for a while it almost looked like they were kind of succeeding, but then Windows 95 came in and just, you know, took the whole market. And shortly after the Windows 95 upgrade became available for this machine, we got, for a very low price, we got to upgrade to Windows 95, and this is actually this is the real disk from my childhood that was used to that we used to upgrade this machine. And yeah. Anyway, the point is, what if I had pressed the other button? What if we had run OS2 Warp on this machine? Now, that was what I wanted to do with this machine. I wanted to install OS2 on it and see just like what would my life had been like if I had chosen OS2 in those fateful days of 1995. Anyway, let's just go to the next part of the video. So if you don't know about OS2, it was basically IBM's and Microsoft's joint effort to create a replacement for MS-DOS that wasn't really bad. Like, MS-DOS is cool, but from a technical standpoint, it was ancient. Like, it didn't take advantage of the 386 or even 286 processors, and it had all sorts of ancient limitations that came down to it basically being a clone of CP/M. Now, they wanted to replace that with something good that took advantage of modern hardware and had various new features. Problem was Windows, which was kind of a stopgap measure from Microsoft, became a little bit too successful. So essentially, Microsoft left IBM to their own devices to keep developing OS2, and they made it a competitor instead to Windows and later Windows NT. And well, we all know how that went, so not that great. I actually don't remember how much RAM is in this. I think maybe 32 megs even. Anyway, yeah, this OS2 Warp 3 was the first version that was really, like, truly aimed at consumers and, you know, tried to be more of a home operating system. It had some multimedia features and so forth. 24 megs. Anyway, this is OS2 Warp 3.0 booting on the IBM Aptiva DX266. Now, I will say that installing this, like, you know, this is IBM hardware from the time. You would think that it would be easy to install an IBM, a contemporary IBM operating system on hardware that was literally meant to run it, but it was hell. Like, installing this was really, really bad. It's extremely slow. It's on a very, very slow process, and you also had to search for drivers on all sorts of ancient FTP sites to get stuff working, like display driver. Why doesn't the Cirrus Logic card work out of the box? I have no idea. Anyway, let's just get a bit closer and we can take a look at some stuff. Take two. I actually had to reshoot this due to some technical difficulties, but yeah, this is what it looks like, and I've installed some stuff on here, mostly games. Not that there were a lot of games for OS2. There wasn't a lot of anything really. Like, actually, as far as unsuccessful operating systems, OS2 was quite successful, to be fair. There was quite a bit of stuff, but it certainly wasn't a gaming operating system. But anyway, here's SimCity on OS2, and I want you to listen to this. Like, as far as I know, I have the correct audio drivers, but this is what it does. So yeah, you know, at least it has music, I guess. I'm not sure why it sounds so bad. Like, there's obviously something wrong with MIDI playback somehow. Another thing, like, note how even, like, this is SimCity. This is not a graphically intensive game, and this is quite a powerful machine, like, to run SimCity 1, right? But the cursor is flickering and it's actually lagging a bit. Do you see that? It's how it's just jumping around. It's not smooth. And I mean, SimCity is cool, but this is running on, I mean, this is, to be fair, this is probably just a crappy port, because, you know, there were a few crappy ports of stuff like SimCity to platforms that almost no one used. And I don't even think that Maxis themselves, no. So you see, it was made by a third party, and that version was based on the X-Windows version by Don Hopkins. So lots of other companies were involved in porting this. And I will tell you right now, those people who made this, they certainly weren't running this on a 486DX2, because this is pretty bad. Like this kind of takes the enjoyment out of the game. Like the MS-DOS or Windows 3 versions of SimCity would run really well on a machine like this, but on OS2 it's just not very pleasant at all. Actually, it's quite bad. Let's see, what if we load a scenario so we have a bigger city going on? Oh, there's a recession in Detroit, really? All right. Well, it's not actually. It's not the simulation that is slow. Like, obviously the simulation is going pretty well. It's something with the graphics. It might be a driver issue. I'm not sure. But anyway, this isn't great. I do have some other stuff. Yeah. How about SimCity 2000? Now, if SimCity 1 runs bad, then how will this run? And I will tell you right now that the music is just as bad. So let's not even listen to that. Let's not. So this is SimCity 2000 on OS2, and I think, is that a hard crash? I think it just crashed, man. Or it didn't crash, but my mouse pointer is invisible. So that's cool. I just pressed Ctrl-Alt-Delete, and as you can tell, it catches the Ctrl-Alt-Del thing and tries to restart safely. So that's cool, as long as it works. And now there is something weird with this machine. This machine has, in a previous life, been controlling an engraving machine. And when I got it, it was working really erratically. And I actually ended up fixing it by just cleaning the motherboard, because I think what had happened was there were like bits of metal, like little flakes of metal from the engraving process, actually conducting electricity on the motherboard. So it still does kind of some weird things. I don't think that crash or lockup was part of the machine being weird. I think that was just OS2 being bad at games. But let's see if we can run SimCity 2000 again. Maybe make it work better this time. So as you can see, the desktop remembers the state that you were last in, which I've never been a fan of that, honestly. See, it even runs like it starts the game for me, just because the game was running when I pressed Ctrl-Alt-Delete. Now, if I'm running an unstable application that makes my system crash so bad that I have to Ctrl-Alt-Del out of it, the last thing I want is for the system to restart the same application again. Anyway, yeah. Let's see if it does the same thing. So the cursor is visible, works fine. And suddenly, like, there's something with the cursor, man. So I'm trying to move it to the top left corner and then just... Yeah, I can press Alt-Tab and get out of it. SimCity 2000 was my favorite game back in the day. And I had the MS-DOS CD collection version and it was just great. See, I made it work. This is not so great. Like, it's the same game and it should run alright on this hardware, but it just doesn't. Like, this has to be a driver problem with my Cirrus Logic graphics. But again, let me stress this. This is running on IBM hardware from the time period with, as far as I remember, you know, official drivers. So I don't really think there's an excuse for it working this poorly. So what else? We've got IBM Works. This was actually, like, you could get something called the OS2 bonus pack, which was kind of like Microsoft Plus for Windows 95, except much more boring. And you got some mildly useful stuff, like this is like a really poor version of Claris Works or Microsoft Works. And I mean, it works, I guess, but it's not that great. And yeah, you know, that's fair enough. I mean, you got your word processor and your... This, by the way, is spelled completely wrong. That's not my fault, that's IBM. You got your spreadsheets and your databases and your charts and graphs and, you know, all the fun stuff that you need. I've also got this, the entertainment pack for OS2, and this shows off kind of a cool feature of the operating system where you could put different backgrounds in different folders and so forth. So this has, you know, this is similar, as you can tell, this is similar to the Microsoft Entertainment Pack for Windows, but this is just, you know, a shareware thing, and you know, it works. It works. It's got some decent things. It's got Tetris, undoubtedly very licensed. Like, I'm sure this guy Peter Vanch, I'm sure he had a Tetris license. But overall, none of these are as polished or quite as fun, probably, as the Microsoft versions. What else? What else? Galactic Civilizations. Now, this was one of the big OS2 exclusive titles. To be honest, I have no idea how to play it, and I don't really care. I'm gonna be dead serious. I don't think these work. Nope. I'm not sure why. It's been a while since I last touched this machine. We've got SimTown, and honestly, this also works really poorly. Like, this works very poorly. And I think, if I recall correctly, only 3 Maxis games that were available for OS2 were SimCity, SimCity 2000, and SimTown. And they all are just kind of janky and kind of not as good as the DOS or Mac or Windows versions. As you can see, it says alpha build. I'm not sure if this was ever commercially released, actually. It might have been. I'm not sure. But anyway, here you go. The pointer is disappearing. So that's great. I mean... But yeah, I wanted to show something else. Let me grab the CD and I'll come back. Alright, check it out. This is the Marugoto CD for OS2, and please feel free to critique my Japanese. It's really good. Yeah, this is something I found on archive.org, and it is essentially like a Japanese sampler slash shareware disk for OS2 from the mid-90s, and it was just weird enough that I decided I had to download it. And let's just see what's on here. I mean, I know what's on there, but I want to show some of it. Now, for the first and I think most interesting part of this CD, we will need to look at this guy and this guy. Anyway, we will need to use Web Explorer, which is the OS2 web browser, because yes, it did come with a web browser in the bonus pack, which was an add-on package you could get like Microsoft Plus. I think I already said that. Anyway, this is Web Explorer, and it's very aesthetic. The thing I wanted to show is this. Like, do you remember back in the early to mid 90s when the internet was still really new and cool, and you could get like sample CDs and stuff with like little tastes of what the internet was like? This is that, like a little slice of the World Wide Web on a CD from Japan. And let's internet. I just think stuff like this is just so cool. It's really, really fun to look at all these years later, and you can learn all about the internet and the World Wide Web. And this is the internet, by the way, in case you weren't aware of how it looks. And here are some of their favorite links. Like, don't you just love this? Like, this is PC Magazine. They just had a user directory on ZDNet. Like, this is the address. And these are actually direct links to GIF files. GIF files? GIF files. I wonder what these were. Like, this was probably manga, right? Like, you know something is old, and you know the internet was like really fascinating when they have direct links to 3 GIF files, just to like, check this out. There's pictures on a computer, and you can learn about making your own homepage, and which I think more people should actually. And you can even put pictures of pets or your new baby on the internet. Like, I can't even imagine why someone would put pictures of cats on the internet, but there you go, you can apparently. And there's email. Like, you can order 1,000 more units of product X. Like, why not? There's also these like little tastes, little samplers of various Japanese websites from the time. So you can look at Asahi News, and there's really not much here, but there's a greeting message from the president. Konnichiwa, welcome to asahi.com. And I love this, you know, it excites me very much to imagine where you may be reading this message. None of these places. I'm reading this, you know, in northern Sweden, but more importantly, in 2019. Now this, I wonder how much that would excite him to know. I'm not gonna read all this to you, but I'm gonna let you pause the video and read it if you want, because I just think, I mean, I love this stuff, man. I love this stuff. I mean, if you had never been on the World Wide Web before, this would still be like, this will blow your mind probably, because it's just, and this, like, this is really cool. You can look at pictures of the 1994 covers of the Tokyo Journal. You can find out who the sexiest man alive is, maybe. Chilling. And check this out. Look at the throbber. Like this, here's your next album cover. And there's this, which is just a huge image. Use the internet an avenue for self-publishing. Yeah, why not? Like, I kind of want to save this image and use it as a desktop background, but honestly, I can't really figure out how to save an image. Like, I can't right click on this. Maybe I can drag it to the desktop, maybe? Like OS2 loves drag and drop, but doesn't look like it. And you can see on the CPU meter that web browsing is pretty heavy stuff. The CPU has peaked a couple times. Remember when just having video files was an exciting thing? Like when just like the Weezer video on the Windows 95 CD-ROM, it doesn't matter if you liked Weezer or not. That's not the point. The point is you're playing video on your computer, and that's really cool. So this actually has all of these, I think, are OS2 ads, like Japanese OS2 ads. Unfortunately, this 486 system kind of really struggles when trying to play these. Might again be the fault of the video drivers, I'm not sure, but anyway, let's just take a look because it's kind of fun anyway. I'm gonna take a look at the CPU meter as well.
DOS も走る Windows も走る OS2 なら一緒に走る Windows も使えるパソコンソフト
Yeah, they used to call OS2 a better DOS than DOS and a better Windows than Windows. I've been kind of harsh on OS2, I guess, but it was true. OS2 at the time was technologically superior to Windows without any doubt. Like, this was a real 32-bit, real multitasking operating system, but in my opinion, it just didn't have the user interface down, and it had performance issues. It was really resource hungry. If you want to run OS2, you kind of want a Pentium. But yeah, anyway, this is just me looking at stuff on an old computer and talking, and I guess that's what the channel is about, but I think I'm pretty much done with it for now. So yeah, pack. Thanks for watching, and I'll maybe see you another time, maybe.
そのパソコン、エモートもノリ悪いね。
はい。
ワープを使え。途端にサクサク。サクサク。
OS2 は新発売。